So I go to Northwestern. I'm currently a sophomore studying statistics, economics, and data science, and I'm originally from Princeton, New Jersey.
In your sophomore fall, can you just walk me through your experience with recruiting and where you were at before we started working together?
In terms of recruiting, it was a lot more of like a hypothetical than like something set in stone that I was like setting goals for every single week to achieve. It was a lot more like, oh yeah, I'll give like recruiting a try and I'll like try to break into banking and see what happens. So it was a lot more of like a toss up in the air. I wasn't sure what to do. I would be like, oh yeah, like I'll send this like networking email to this person like tomorrow. Like I'll worry about it tomorrow. And
I
really
see.
just pushing it behind because I didn't really have that external initiative, I
Hmm.
guess, kind of like pushing me to get it going. So it was a lot of just like I hope I'm gonna do this, but not really taking a lot of the efforts to actually do actions that put like that see through that plan.
And what made you open to looking for more structured guidance in this process?
So I think I was always open to help. It was just like finding the
Hmm.
resources and the people to talk to. Because personally, I'm not the biggest like extrovert. I'm very like I like to keep things to myself, and especially with recruiting, I know like it's such a competitive environment. As soon as you mention you're recruiting, everyone's like sizing you up. So
Totally.
I was definitely trying to keep things very personal and private. So I didn't want to like go out and ask people, be like, oh, like I need help with the recruiting because I would be like, oh, like she's recruiting and like let me look at her profile and see like how my competition is. So it was just like having that difficulty of finding someone, especially on a more personal and private level, was something that I was definitely looking for.
Did you end up doing any research online or like trying to find other resources before we got connected?
Mm, I think I did a lot of just like looking for the guides, looking for like videos. It wasn't like necessarily people, like coaching type things. Yeah.
Where do you think those resources fall short?
Anyone can do the 400 questions, anyone can go through all the guides. But I think, especially now that recruiting is done, what really helped me with, I don't know, like being successful in the process is just being able to differentiate myself from others. And I think in these public resources, it just serves as a very good like starting point. I think had I only like stuck with that, I would have been like one of the many people just like trying to break into banking without having like a very definitive like I guess characteristic that makes them stand out.
And so once we got connected and I walked you through my program, what about it
Mhm.
compelled you to join?
I think I also remember like telling you this like in our first couple of meetings. I was like, I'm like completely down to do all of the like work and the studying so long as I had someone to like kind of guide me through it and tell me
Hmm.
like at this date you should be here, at this date you should have talked to XYZ number of people. I think the structure of it all and having, I guess, that like personal like experience with your recruiting experience and just having someone, I guess, one-on-one to talk to the whole time, I think that was something that really stood out to me. And also just knowing that like I don't think I would have ever had this opportunity at another time. So really just like recognizing how invaluable it was in that moment. I think that was also a really big factor as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's super competitive. And so I also think that students need to think a bit longer term that like if there are additional resources
Mm,
to like help them out, they should take it because to your point, it's kind of like a one shot and this process happens so early
yeah,
and so quickly. What part of my program did you find most helpful?
I think a lot of it was just the interview structuring and preparing for interviews as well as like the networking strategy. I think um especially starting with recruiting, I remember I was like trying to think about like, oh, like to tell me about yourself. I think I've always like struggled with kind of like marketing myself as a specific type of person. So having that external, I guess, like experienced perspective on like how to frame myself, how to frame like characteristics and my experiences in a way that helps me in these interviews was definitely very helpful. Knowing how to answer like why banking or like what's your biggest strengths and weaknesses, knowing how to formulate, especially these like behavioral questions was
Yeah.
something that I thought was super helpful, as well as networking, because I think just like knowing what to write in the emails is especially helpful and knowing like how exactly to approach like the networking process was really helpful as well and like knowing how many people to reach out to, the types of people, how often to like bump the networking emails as well. I think those were the most helpful parts.
What were some of the things that we implemented into your story to make it like more personalized and how did that change how you like approach that question altogether.
hmm I think it's ultimately just like drawing every single experience back to the position that I'm applying for. I think especially like when I was going through like sophomore internship hunting, I think what I learned through our experience, what they tell me about yourself, definitely really was like honestly like really helpful. Just because before I would say these experiences and be like, oh, I entered here and I'm in this club, but I never drew it back or like made these conclusions on like oh, like I realized I like XYZ and this ties me back to like why I want to go into investment banking. I think that final connection was something that was definitely lacking. Like I was honestly just like, oh, here are my experiences. I'm not really like making any conclusions from it. Just take what you will with that. I don't think I had that final connection point that I thought
Yeah.
was really helpful. And I guess like packaging all of my experiences and like kind of like shaping myself into a specific type of person.
And so, can you also walk through that transformation that you felt on the networking side as well?
I think prior to starting together, when I first networking, it honestly was something that I was really like anxious about. Also, kind of tying back to like imposter syndrome. I didn't know if like the way I was like answering questions was the right way, if the terms I was using were the right terms. I think just trying to like make myself look like I knew what finance was about. I think that uncertainty, hesitation definitely shone through in the way I answered the questions and conducted the networking calls. And I think like honestly, you could kind of tell that I didn't really want to be there and I just wanted the call to end like as soon as possible. But I think um especially after hearing like your points about like oh networking should be like a learning experience and like these are just like normal people having that humanizing point and also having I guess these more structured questions and more of a roadmap as to how to lead the networking
hmm
calls. I think there came a point where I actually like really enjoyed the calls and really took it as a moment to learn more about the firm, their experiences. And I think it just made the experience overall a lot more enjoyable and I guess in turn a lot more effective and informative as well.
And on interviews, any sort of mindset shift that you had as well in terms of like before versus
hmm
after?
My prep was a lot more structured. I think I was able to pinpoint exactly what I needed to improve. I think like in a hypothetical situation, like had we not worked together, I would have been like, oh, my technicals need improvement. But it was a lot like, okay, like what type of technicals? Like that would have been a lot more unclear. And it would be harder to have that targeted like troubleshooting that
hmm
would like keep me like, I guess, like as well-rounded as possible.
Okay, and so onto like your processes. Can you just like high level, I guess, maybe walk through like how many high reviews did you do? How many like first rounds did you get? And then
Mhm.
super days and then offers.
I did do quite a few higher views. I think, ooh, maybe like 7 to 9 higher views. It was a lot. I remember just putting on a suit a lot and talking to the camera a lot of times. Um, as for first round, I did get a couple of first rounds and I got one super day for Piper, got the offer for Piper. It was just one and done. I had no super day experience prior to that one as well.
Yeah. And in terms of like your own self-transformation throughout this process, like how do you think you
Mhm.
evolved through like recruiting?
I think I definitely became a lot more self-assured and knowing who I am and what I want to present myself to other people. I think going back to like the entire like sophomore internship finding, because I was having interviews for that as well during recruiting, because I also procrastinated on that. I think I became definitely a lot more self-aware of what qualities I was trying to project to these recruiters and these interviewers, as well as knowing how to frame my experiences. So I definitely became a lot more self-aware and
hmm
confident in that sense. And also, especially with like networking, um, going about networking and knowing how to reach out to professionals for advice. That is something I think I would have never had known to approach, like how to go about that
Yeah.
successfully. But I think now that's something I definitely have under control. And like, even if let's say banking didn't work out and I had to like go pursue another route and restart with networking, I definitely would have known where to start, how to structure it,
Awesome.
and how the process should have been. Yeah.
And last question for you, if another student was on the
Mhm.
fence about working with me, what would you tell them?
Right. Oh, I would say 100%. I think going back to the whole curated point, like I think that type of one-on-one professional curated support is something that you could never really find here on campus because like your network is upperclassmen and they have their own experiences and they have yet to go into the actual like banking industry as a full-time analyst. So hearing it from someone who already has gone through the full-time experience, the recruiting experience, and has been on the opposite side of the I guess the role, I think having that unique perspective is something that is definitely valuable. I mean, I think there's insights that you get only through being a full-time analyst that you wouldn't be able to get as a junior or senior in college. So having that unique edge and that unique perspective with the advice you're receiving is something that's definitely helpful. And also just like personally, at least I just really like how it's like very like one-on-one and knowing that like let's say like if I was talking to like a junior, knowing that like, oh, maybe he's like giving me less advice because he wants to help someone else instead. Just like having that genuine connection, not having to worry about like the, I guess like the politicalness of it all. I
Hmm.
think that is something that is definitely helpful as well. So yeah, my 2 cents.